Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, with some parents unable to get space for their children at schools, are there other options they can explore, perhaps online and homeschooling? Well, Wits University's educational expert, Professor Mary Metcalfe, joins me to unpack the pros and cons of these options. Ms. Metcalfe, thank you very much for your time this morning. Now, before we get to the online schooling, I want us to just tackle the placement issue itself. Now, listening to Minister Motshekga yesterday, she seems to be fairly satisfied with the online system that they've been using. She basically attributes the problem to the movement of people from one province to another. What are your views on this perennial problem?
I agree with Minister Motshekga Mfundo. You know, we're looking in particular at two provinces where there's very large in-migration into the province from other provinces and sometimes from other countries. So Gauteng is in the spotlight at the moment. And if you look at how many learners they received from other provinces last year, it was 103,000. Now, education planning assumes that we would be able to have a fairly stable population. It assumes that new developments are planned and all of the associated services are planned. And that's clearly not the case, because we have rapid urbanization and we have increasing densification in Gauteng. I won't talk about Western Cape because it's Gauteng that's the spotlight. But the second thing about this crisis is that as much as it is really significant for every learner and for every family, it's 1,400 learners, which is, I didn't quickly do the arithmetic to see what percentage of Gauteng it is, but it's a very small percentage, which doesn't undermine the significance for the families. And secondly, from what I can see, the Gauteng Department of Education is working very hard to address the challenge.
Now, good and well, they are working hard, and they've said 99.5%, I believe, have been placed. It's at 1,300. But some still criticize them and say, with the benefit of hindsight or with historic data available to you, perhaps you would now have some sort of an indication around the rapid urbanization. At what rate are we getting more people into Gauteng? And perhaps then you would plan accordingly and ensure that there are more schools that are built at possibly the same rate as the number of people that are moving into Gauteng. Would you say that that's fair criticism or not?
My sense is that the internal in-migration into informal areas is a little bit unpredictable, and the department tends to have rapid response measures in place, such as mobile classrooms. What is much more difficult, I think, is this complex issue. And I'm going to put my colors on the mast in the beginning. Is I believe that children should have a quality public school near where they live. That would mean that we could have zoning, which is what we do have, which says you have a right to attend a school in your area. Now, that's complicated in the South African context because we have historically ranges of qualities.
Yes.
And parents want to find the best school, even if it means that their children have to travel. And that is where I sometimes think some of the pressure is coming from. I want to apply for my child to go to a school that I think is better, which I absolutely understand. The solution really has to be systemic, that parents need to work with communities to have confidence that the school that is convenient for their family is a school of quality. And that is a long-term process. The other thing is that in some areas of Gauteng, and I know Gauteng better, and it is the province that's in the spotlight, there's rapid, what do we call it, intensification of buildings in established areas. So we've got densification is the word. So we've got densification without new schools being built. And I suspect that that may also be a factor. For example, in the north of Johannesburg, there's many more private schools that have been established than new public schools. And that is a complicated issue. So the big picture is, yes, the Gauteng Department of Education has to build more schools rapidly. They have to increase the efficiency of their building operations, but we can't pin it all on government, and we have to say, let's look at how my local public school can be improved in quality so that as a family, I don't have the risks of sending my children in transport for
That
sometimes
particular
hours.
Apologies for interjecting there. That particular argument around perhaps having the learners going to a school near their homes then brings up the conversation, like you say, around under-resourcing. Because just yesterday, we had a number of our reporters going to Soweto. Those schools are dilapidated. They're not in a condition that could actually teach young people. They cannot be going to school in some of those schools. There's no ablution facilities that are decent enough. So in that instance, you find the parents taking the other option, which is to have children placed at a school near their working space. So wherever they would be working, they also then are permitted to place their children close by.
Yeah, so this for me is a complex set of making our governance system work. Where's the provincial legislature? Where's our school governing bodies? And how can we say, number one, the building program for Gauteng, which is focused very much on new schools and making state-of-the-art schools. Now, I understand the approach that says, let's show that our townships can have quality excellence in terms of new buildings. I would rather see more modest schools with more schools being built and more renovation and infrastructure improvement. It's unacceptable that in a province such as Gauteng, which has so many privileges, that there shouldn't be ablution blocks that are working. They're fundamental to being at school.
Then comes to the online learning. I mean, many would think with the level of distress caused by the issue of placement that some parents would explore this option of enrolling their kids online. But online is just not taking up in the country.
Well, there's three big factors for me around online learning. Firstly, it's material, it's social, and it's educational. So the material, not all families are able to ensure uninterrupted power supply for learners studying at home. Secondly, the social components of school, by which I don't only mean having friends, but the institutional life, the routine, the rhythms, the maturity and social maturing issues of greater independence, learning to interact, both in class and out of class. All of those social factors that are important to institutional life and growing up are crucial. But I also think that the educational components of learning online have to be looked at much more carefully. Parents often leave their children at home and go to school to do online learning. The traditional homeschooling approach, which not all families can do and have the necessary resources, the parent is deeply engaged with the child. Of course, then there's the social consequences. But online learning, you have to have somebody who's monitoring what the learner does in a supportive and not interfering way. You have to have constant feedback. You need to know that the work that you've done, if it's adequate, how it can be improved, where it needs to be improved, and it needs to be done in a way where the teacher's maximally in line with the mind of every learner, where she knows, given what's happened in the last 3 years of COVID, what gaps there are in learners' learning. But what I can see is that some of the online learning has not yet mastered what it means to be on top of the actual pedagogy of teaching online. There are some online programs which are highly individualized, but from what I can see of the online schools, it's standard, here's the material, not enough feedback, children on their own, not enough social life. So maybe it will come right, maybe it will be something of the future, but for now, we need our public schools to be of a quality that communities have confidence in. And we need our education departments to get on top of the building and renovation program.